I'm pulling out of the parking lot from a large apartment complex on my way back to the store. I start to move out of the driveway but hit the brakes as I see a car coming that I didn't notice in my initial look of the street. I did not enter the street, and the car was still about 150 feet down the street by the time I had stopped again. I'm sure this has happened to everyone, yet the guy driving an old Acura with tinted windows and dumb-looking alloys that stick out beyond the sides of the wheel wells screeches to a halt in front of me. He rolls down his windows and begins to yell at me. I had my windows up. He's probably about 22, looking like a stereotypical Class 1A a-hole. I motion for him to get out of the way as I wanted to leave. He doesn't move. I flip him the bird. He continues to yell. Traffic backs up behind him. I hit reverse and pull around him, continuing to flip him the bird as he continues to yell at me. No big deal, I think. What an a-hole. Yet on my way back to the store, I notice he's following me. I ditched the idea of hopping on the freeway and leading him on a wild goose chase, as he probably doesn't know what store I'm from, and head back for the store. He follows me. I walk into the store, check back in. He walks in about 2 minutes later, looking right at me. I give him a big smile and he asks to speak to the manager. Ronnie, the manager, goes outside to talk with him. They talk for a few minutes, the guy leaves. Ronnie tells me that he was pissed because I endangered his safety and he had children in the car. My manager told him to F off. I'm on my way back from the first house of my delivery en route to the second. It's late at night and I'm heading down a one-lane street that splits into 4. 2 forward, 2 turning, at a light, then back to 1. A Blazer is in one of the forward lanes. I pull up in one of the other forward lanes. The light turns green. I go. The Blazer goes. I start to hit the gas a little more as the 2 lanes are merging, and the Blazer is keeping up with me. I floor it so I can get ahead of this guy, going about 55 in this 30 or 35 zone. I stay that speed, and the Blazer is right on my tail. A ways down the road, there's a 4-way stop. I slow down for the stop, and the Blazer goes in the left lane, where other traffic would be, flying through the stop at about 55. At this point, I'm thinking good riddance as he turns onto the main road up ahead. I end up turning the same direction and end up pulling next to him again at a red light. It turns green. Same thing happens again. He's matching my speed. I'm now in the right lane and I need to get into the left lane to make a left-hand turn onto another street for my next delivery. I floor it, get by him, and he pulls up right behind me in the turning lane and follows me into the parking lot of the apartment building, pulling up right behind my car. I get out, walk over to his car. He's an older man, probably around 40, and say, "Is there something I can help you with?" To which he replies, "Do you have any idea how fast you were going?" I say, "Well, probably too fast for your liking, but didn't you blow through that stop sign in the wrong lane?" He then flies off the handle with a bunch of stuff like, "Don't ask who I am. What do you think you were doing?" I thought he's probably a cop, but he couldn't give me a ticket because he had no radar, and he did everything I was doing and more. So I say, "Have a nice day," get my pizzas and walk away. When I came back to my car, he was gone. I pull into the apartment building parking lot, park in a spot, get the pizza out of my back seat. There is some guy on a balcony of the building and he yells at me, "Why did you park there?" I respond, 'Cause it looked empty." He says, "That's not a visitor spot. You have to park in the visitor spot." I reply, "Okay, but I'm not going to move." He gets a little irritated and says, "I'll call the cops and they'll ticket you." Knowing that A, the cops would not get there in time, and B, the cops in the city would never give me a ticket in a million years, I said, "Right." In the whole 2 minutes I'm inside, I proceed to ignore whatever he says, walk in and take the pizza to the woman, thanking God it wasn't this bastard. I walk out of the building and he's still on the balcony waiting for me. Now I'm a nice guy, but if you say the wrong thing to me, as this a-hole was doing, I'll go off on you, because I love being a jerk. Anyway, he said something like, "Why the hell don't you park in the visitor spot?" I reply, "Don't you have better things to do than make sure everyone parks in the right spot?" He says, "I'm the manager of the building." I say, "I wouldn't care if you were the Pope." He says, "Can't you effing read? The sign says visitor. Are you stupid or something?" Now I've thoroughly had it with this jerk, so I say, "You know what? Why don't you F yourself off, a-hole?" He then roars, "All right, I'm coming down there." Now I'm not really overly afraid. I'm 6'2" and 185 pounds, so not exactly a small guy, but I really do not want to get into a fight with this jerk. Also, because he looked to be about 5'11" and 230 pounds. So I hightail it to my car, and as I'm pulling out, he comes rushing out the door at me, yelling, "Mother effer! Mother effer!" I was half expecting him to get into a car and follow me back to the store, but he didn't. I'll never forget this night that the pizza place I worked in was about to close when the phone rang. I was working the counter alone that night, so I picked up the phone, but there was complete silence, so I hung up. About a minute later, the phone rings, so I pick up again and still there's only silence. I was about to hang up again when I heard a weak and cold voice, that of an old lady. She said she wanted a regular pie to be delivered. I was very polite, but inside I was steaming. I wanted to go home and end my shift. I called my boss that there was another delivery. He said I had to go, but I could close up after. I was upset, but I knew the late calls usually give up good tips, so I told the lady it would be at her home shortly. But she had already hung up, so I told the chief one more order. The house was 7 miles away. It was a very small house. I rang the doorbell, but there was no answer. The lights were off. I rang again, but nothing. I was about to walk away when I see the curtains move, and there was a shadowy figure at the window. I couldn't see who it was, so I got closer to the window. It was the elderly lady, about 7 years old. She stood there just looking at me with a blank look on her face. I told her I had her pizza, but she made no response. I thought she probably didn't hear me, so I screamed it louder. She looked at me and smiled, but not a normal smile. A bone-chilling, eerie smile. I still remember to this day that woman's face with the horrible smile. I was so freaked out I just turned around and walked to my car with the pizza. I texted my boss to tell him I couldn't deliver the pizza. When I look out the passenger window to see the woman standing outside by my car with the same evil smile, I put my car in drive and floored it. My boss never made me make a late night delivery again. I was doing a nighttime delivery. I lived in a very rural town. This night was very foggy with poor visibility, which was rare this time of the year. As I was driving down a dirt road, I see this person jump in front of my car. I feel an impact in my front bumper screeching to a stop, so I quickly get out of the car. The man was on the ground in front of my car. He was wearing a black hoodie over his head. As I was about to bend down to touch him, I heard a voice from inside the woods crying for help. I turned around and without a second thought ran into the woods in the direction of the scream. I yelled out, "Hello? Anyone there?" Complete silence except for the sounds of the crickets. Then, I feel like I'm being watched. I see a shadowy figure just about 10 feet away from me hiding behind a tree. I yell, "Are you okay?" But nothing. The figure just stands there now in front of the tree. It seemed as if it was staring at me for hours. I got so scared, I ran back in the direction of my car. When I got there, the man that was laying on the ground was gone. I hopped in my car and drove away. I decided to go to my delivery address anyway. I was shaken, but just glad I got out of there. I walked up to the front door and a lady opened the door. As I'm giving her change, she looks past me in the direction of my car and says, "They letting you guys have delivery partners now?" I was confused and asked her what she meant, and she told me, "You have someone with you sitting in your car." I looked back and saw someone sitting in the back seat of my car. I called the cops from the customer's house phone and they arrived shortly after, but the person in my car was already gone. The scariest thing about this was that the cops found a blood-stained knife on the floor of my back seat. I'm haunted by this event every day. I can genuinely tell you it's painfully scary to imagine how things could have gone if I didn't go to that last delivery. This happened 4 years ago when I was in high school. I was told to do my very last delivery, so I got in my old car and headed out. I live upstate in the country, so all pizza deliveries were long drives. I remember the sun was starting to set, so I would say it was about 7 o'clock. I'd say after 15 minutes of driving, I finally got there. It was a very old house made completely out of wood. It was sitting all by itself, surrounded by the forest. The lawn was completely unkept. I was used to all this, so I didn't think anything of it, and I took the pizza to the front door. There was no doorknob, so I knocked and yelled, "It's the pizza guy with your pizza." Nothing, so I repeated it. Suddenly, I heard footsteps from the inside heading to the door, and stop. But they didn't open the door. They just stood there. I yelled again, "It's the pizza guy." A low voice said from beyond the door, "Bring it to the back of the house." I was reluctant. I asked him, "Are you sure, sir?" No answer. I was about to walk to the car, but I didn't want to have a problem with my boss. Last time I brought back a pizza, I was almost fired. So I treaded lightly as I made my way back to the house through the brush. I come across the figure of someone sitting in a chair in my opposite direction in the porch, staring off into the distance. "Excuse me, I have your pizza." But it didn't move, nor talk. I repeated myself, but nothing. I hear a voice coming from the door just past the silent figure. "Psst! Hey, over here." I look in the direction of the whisper. I see this man poking his head through the old door. He had this weird, unnatural smile as if he knew something I didn't. He says, "Come here, I want to show you something." I was so scared I ran back to my car and drove away. As soon as I got back into town, I called the cops. I got a call back from the police who informed me that there was no one there, nor were there signs of anyone being there for a long time. I quit my job a few days later. I have no idea what would have happened to me if I would have gone up to that man, and I don't want to know.